What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to From the Bench. I'm your host, Will Meadows, and today is our Tuesday edition of From the Bench. So we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about, is Dylan Sampson, we all know he's been impressive, but should he be a Heisman contender? Because years prior, previous running back Heisman winners, it's looking like it. We're going to talk about what's going on around the SEC, and can this second half from the Bama game carry over? Because, for example, Bama's first half and big win versus Georgia obviously hasn't carried over, so that's what we're going to get into today. But before we get into anything, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like this video, and follow all of our socials with the handles listed below. So without further ado, let's get straight into how good Dylan Sampson really has been this year. So a stat that I want to bring up, again, I say it all the time on this show because I'm just so impressed with Ashton Jeanty, is I think Dylan Sampson would be easily the best running back in football and a Heisman contender any year that Ashton Jeanty wasn't playing. So I want to go over the last two running back Heisman winners, which are Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram, and their stats through 7 games versus Dylan Sampson's. So first, we have Derrick Henry. Through 7 games, he had 901 yards and 13 touchdowns. Mark Ingram, through 7 games, had 905 yards and 8 touchdowns. Dylan Sampson, through 7 games, has 838 yards and 17 touchdowns. So they both have him a little bit on yards, but he's got a lot more touchdowns than both of them. He over doubles Mark Ingram. So, I mean, it really just puts into perspective how good Dylan Sampson's been for us. He's gotten so much better since last year. I think the biggest improvement and most noticeable improvement he's made from last year is his patience behind blocks. When we recruited him, we were like, Dylan Sampson's the fastest player on the team. Like, he got some playing time as a freshman behind Jabari Small and Jalen Wright, and he got some playing time last year. I mean, heck, he had 5 touchdowns, or 4, I think it was 5, against Virginia in our opening game last year. So he's always played. He's a great athlete. He's always been a great athlete. He's always been explosive. Like, he had an 80-yard touchdown run his freshman year. But his patience and just instead of just bursting through the hole, or really not bursting through a hole, waiting for a hole, but instead of just bursting through the O-line, his patience, and then boom, bam, just explosiveness through the hole, finding a hole. It's almost Alvin Kamara-like. I think they play so much alike. They're both good receiving backs. His pass protection's got better this year. Obviously, that was one of his big things he needed to work on last year. So, again, just Dylan Sampson has been everything we need and then some. His only flaw was that fumble against Alabama, which he made up for it with 2 touchdowns and a huge second half. And just think, like, if he got off to a good start these last 3 games, what those stats could be. I'd also like to add that he didn't play in the second half of UTC or Kent State. So, we saw what he was doing to Kent State in the first half. And I'm sure Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram had games like that too, because they were on those loaded Alabama teams. But I just wanted to add that. So, I mean, Dylan Sampson should be a Heisman contender. On 3 drops their top 10 Heisman rankings every week after the AP polls dropped and things like that. It usually drops on Monday, and so it dropped today, and he wasn't even in the top 11, which is just absolutely it blows my mind. I don't understand it, but who cares? I mean, it's not like he's going to win it. I mean, he's not, because, again, like, they're not going to send 2 running backs, a DB, and 1 quarterback. Like, they're not going to send Ashton Jeanty, Dylan Sampson, Travis Hunter, and Cam Ward to New York. I mean, that's just not going to happen. It's a quarterback award. Historically, it's not going to be won by a quarterback this year, I don't think. I should think it. There's no doubt in anybody's mind I guess there's a debate between Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter, but I think it should be Ashton Jeanty. But that's besides the point. We're highlighting our running back, Dylan Sampson, and it really just shows how good he's been, because we've all seen Ashton Jeanty. I mean, he has 17 touchdowns through 5 games, and like 1,400 yards. I mean, he's a different animal. So he's on pace to have historically the best college football season in the history of college football. So, props to him. But I just wanted to shine some light on Dylan Sampson. Obviously, we know how good he's been, but I wanted to bring that stat to light. And before we start talking about around the SEC, because that's going to be the larger segment of our show, I like to do that on Tuesday just to get everybody a feel of what's going around the SEC and where the Vols stack up against everybody else, because obviously, there's not standings where it used to be East and West. It's all just whoever's the two best teams are going to Atlanta. But the question I have is, can this second half, obviously the first half against Alabama, so ugly, horrendous to watch. But can this second half of Alabama, which was great, 24 points, Nico made big throws, can that carry over to games? Can it bleed over into Kentucky? Can it bleed over into Georgia, Mississippi State, UTEP, Vanderbilt, and so on and so forth? I think yes. I think Josh Heupel's a great coach. I think, like I said on yesterday's show, I think Nico grew up. I think a lot of people are throwing that term around right now, and rightfully so. He gets hurt, and he shows grit and determination and comes back in and starts leading a great drive, and then bang, just boneheaded interception. A foot away from the sideline, either run out like he did against Arkansas or throw it away. I mean, it's one of two things, and he makes a young quarterback mistake and tries to throw and gets hit, tries to find Brew McCoy in the end zone and gets hit, and it's an interception. So, dumb play by him there, but like I said, the second half he really grew up. I mean, he made big plays. It's the biggest game of his career, his life, and it's the biggest rival, the biggest atmosphere he's played in. And he made plays when we needed him most. That throw to Dante Thornton was beautiful. The throw to Chris Brazell was absolutely, you couldn't have thrown the ball any better. So my guess is yes. I think it will bleed into it, because I think Josh Heupel starts off so good historically. There's no way that this stays, in my opinion. And I was watching Josh Pate. I'm sure everybody knows who that is. The best, in my opinion, the best college football talk show host. Anybody who covers college football, he's the best. It wasn't even Josh Pate. And it's another great one. It was J.D. Piquel, who works for On3. He said that it reminds him of Oregon, in the beginning of the year. Obviously, Oregon's figured it out. They're number one in the country. They haven't lost. They beat Ohio State. It's not a problem, it's an issue. A problem, you need new players, it's going to be a problem. An issue is fixable. We have all the talent to do it. The O-line looked a lot better against Alabama. If the O-line stays better, if the receivers continue to get open, because everybody, and it's Eric Kane said it on Locked On Balls, everybody keeps saying how important, and I said it too, and it's changed since the Arkansas game, don't get me wrong, it's changed a lot since Arkansas, and they've started throwing it deep against Florida and against Alabama. It's not an Alex Golesh problem. It's not a scheme problem. There's receivers running behind the secondary, and they're open. But we just haven't been able to connect. But I think that Nico's got all the talent in the world. I think he's making young quarterback mistakes, and I think that our successful second half, a bye week, gets Dante Thornton more healthy. He's on a snap count, and he's made the most of his snaps with all he can do. He had 3 receptions for 70 yards, and obviously that big catch. Hopefully this bye week gets the team a little more healthy, gets Squirrel White healthy, and we've got the playmakers to do it. But it's, can we execute, which is we have not been able to do in the first half. But I think we do. I'm going to have a positive outcome or a positive attitude about it, because again, when you're 6-1 and you've beat Florida and Alabama, it's hard not to have a good attitude, no matter how bad the offense has been in the first half so far this year. Because I remember, it's I saw a thing that the Vols are officially bowl eligible, and everybody keeps complaining. Obviously, they aren't now after we beat Alabama, but a couple weeks ago, and I said last week on the show, we were 5-1 and just beat Florida. No matter how ugly it is, be happy, because I remember we would fight for eligibility to be in the Outback Bowl. I remember when Vanderbilt beat us, and they were 5-7 and got into the. They didn't have enough 6-6 teams, so they ended up getting in. Be great. We were kind of settling for 6 and 7 wins, and we're for sure going to have at least 7. We should have 10 or 11 this year if we handle business. But again, the SEC and college football these days, it's hard to handle business because everybody's good. As I say that, around the SEC, this past weekend, Missouri beat Auburn 21-19 to keep them something in 1, 6-1, I want to say, 5, 6-1, 7-1. Brady Cook, the quarterback from Missouri, absolute legend, goes out in the first or second quarter, tries to scramble out of the pocket, and just plants his leg and lands on it weird. Leaves the game, goes back to the locker room, goes to the hospital. You heard that right. Goes to the hospital. And, you'd think just throw in the white flag, Brady Cook's done for the day. Comes back in the fourth quarter and leads a game-winning fourth quarter. That is unheard of. That is absolutely legendary. I don't care who it is, who he plays for. I don't care for Missouri. I don't really have a problem with him. I don't like Eli Drinkwitz, but absolutely legendary by Brady Cook. I mean, just the determination that takes and the toughness. I mean, that's all you can ask for in a quarterback and a leader of a program and a leader of a team of Missouri's caliber. I mean, they've been underwhelming this year, but they're still top 25 in a one-loss team. So props to Brady Cook. South Carolina, who is, I think it's a top 25 team. I'm not saying that because I'm like, oh yeah, South Carolina's good. I just don't think there's 25 teams better than them. Curb stomp, just absolutely massacred Oklahoma. It was like 32-9. It was not even close. 32-3, something like that. I don't remember the exact score off the top of my head, but I know it wasn't close, and it was in Norman. Granted, it was a noon game, so the atmosphere wasn't rocking, and the Oklahoma's not trending in the right direction, which just makes our win look. It invalidates our win because now they're just horrible, and they're hurt. All their receivers are hurt. I mean, it's bad for them. They're in a rough spot as a program in general. They moved to 4-3 on the year with losses to Texas, Tennessee, and now South Carolina. So it'll be interesting to see where this Oklahoma program goes because it's not in the right direction. If Brent Venables, what he does with this team. South Carolina, I don't think Lenore Sellers is good at all. I mean, he would be a good UNLV quarterback, not a SEC caliber quarterback. That's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he sees this, and obviously he's not. But maybe Lenore Sellers would have seen this and hate my guts. I just don't think he's that good. A&M survived 34-24 at Mississippi State in Stark Vegas. I mean, kind of an ugly game for A&M. They put up 34 points, but Mississippi State's 1-5 now, or 1-6, one of the two. It's hard to keep up with now that people have two byes. I can't remember who's had a bye or who's had their second bye or who hasn't had a bye at all. Because like Boise State just had their second bye, and some teams haven't even had their first. Like NC State hasn't had their first. Mississippi State, when you look at the record and on paper, it doesn't look pretty and right. I mean, it wouldn't when you're a one-win team. But I think they found their quarterback of the future in Van Buren after their quarterback went down. I think it was against Florida. He's out for the year. And you got to be happy. You say you got to be happy after being a 1-5, 1-6. But you got your quarterback, I think. I think he's a good young player. I think A&M's good. I wouldn't be surprised to see, as much as I can't stand to say it because I used to be a Connor Wegman hater, but he's been different coming off of his injury. I wouldn't be surprised to see Texas A&M in the SEC championship because they are a one-loss team right now, but their one loss is not in the SEC. It's against Notre Dame. So, that team is good. That all they've got really, that's the big test. They've got LSU this weekend, which those two playing each other will be a big game. But then they've got Texas later on in the year, and it's at Kyle Field, so that's going to be a big environment. But moving on, LSU goes to Fayetteville. Caden Durham, their freshman running back, proves to be the best freshman running back in the country, which Florida had somebody, a freshman running back, but we'll get into him when we talk about Florida. LSU, they look better. They're starting to. They've been known to throw it. Garrett Nussmeier has been good all year. Oh, he kind of struggled last game, or against Ole Miss last game. Kyron Lacey's easily one of the best receivers in the country. But LSU, they're finding ways. Earlier in the year, they couldn't run the ball at all. And Caden Durham's stepped it up big time, a true freshman. He had 3 touchdowns against Arkansas. Just heck of a day for him. LSU's good. Fayetteville was a hostile environment again, just like it was for us. and they went in and got the win. And that's what you got to do in SEC football. When you're better than the team, you've got to take care of business, which is not an easy task, as we've seen in the SEC this year. Vanderbilt keeps moving. They beat Ball State 24-14. Why they're playing Ball State at this state of the year, I don't really understand. But maybe their schedule, like we have UTEP later, maybe they play. I don't understand it. Usually you have SEC schools have like a homecoming, but I don't care. They beat Ball State by 10. They keep moving. They're ranked. Vanderbilt's ranked 25, cracked the top 25. So hopefully they stay ranked, because I want to have another ranked win when we play them, if we're to beat them, because, again, taking care of business in the SEC is not as easy as it seems. They've got Texas coming up this week. Big game. Josh Pate's going to be there, who I just talked about mistakenly earlier. Should be a good game because it's two ranked teams. It's 5 versus 25, but I don't know. I think Vanderbilt's good, but it's weird to say. Like, are we sure Vanderbilt's good? Or is Alabama a fluke? I don't know. Florida absolutely kills the University of Kentucky, 48-20. I think Florida's a good team. I said they were trending in the right direction, and they've got DJ Lagway for the rest of the year now. I think they're going to be okay. I think they might. I think they should keep Billy Napier. Call me crazy. I don't know what anybody's going to think about that, but I feel like he's got a little something going on there. Cormani McClain, the transfer from Colorado, who was the number one DB in the country last year, had a pick 6. Obviously, DJ Lagway played good. He only completed like 7 or 10 passes or something. It wasn't a lot, but that kid can throw the deep ball. Kentucky, and you say what you want, like Kentucky's not good. They hung 48 on them on a team that's only allowed 14 points a year, or 14 points a game this year. So whether you like it or not, that's impressive. I think going into it, I thought they were the third best defense in the SEC behind us in Georgia. Tennessee's allowing 11.5 points per game right now, which is unheard of. Obviously, Georgia's allowing a little more because, they went in that shootout with Alabama. But obviously, Georgia's defense proved to be good, and we'll talk about that next game that we're about to talk about against Texas, as they had 7 sacks. But Florida, man, I hate saying this, but I feel like they're going to be all right for the rest of the year. Again, they have a brutal schedule, so I don't know what the record's going to look like, but I think they're going to be okay. I think they've got young talent, and if they can recruit a little better, because they've kind of struggled recruiting lately, if they can recruit a little better, they can pick that program up back on track. And Kentucky's part, I just don't see a world, and especially at home, I think we're going to be favored by a ton, but I don't see a world where we lose to Kentucky, because that offense is so horrendous. It's so bad. Brock Vandagriff is horrible. And then the dude that they brought in after Brock Vandagriff was like 0-6 with the pick 6. So I don't see them being able to score points. They scored 20 points against Florida, and one of them was a kickoff return. I just don't see them being able to move the ball on our defense. And I was telling my buddy today, this is back on Tennessee, I don't know if, no matter how bad this offense stays in the first half, there will never be a game that we're not in because we have the best defense in the country. We will always be in contention to win a game, no matter how bad the offense is. I don't care what anybody says. This defense is ridiculous. Anyways, I just don't see a world where we lose to Kentucky next week after our bye week 2 and get the team a little more healthy. I don't see a world where we lose that game. Georgia gets impressive win over Texas, and this is how college football has been all year. As soon as you think there's a new number one, a new best team in college football, they just get beat. So who knows? I thought Texas was the best team in college football by a good bit. I thought they were going to beat Georgia by a good bit. At Texas, Carson Beck's been struggling, and he still did struggle. He threw 3 interceptions. But they found a way to win. And again, like I said, that's not easy in the SEC. Texas had quarterback problems. I think benching Quentin Ewers after his tough first quarter and second quarter, obviously he ended up coming back in, but that's just, you kill the confidence of your quarterback right then and there. I just found that a little ridiculous, and I don't think that would happen if his last name wasn't Manning. And Arch Manning's played good when he's played this year, don't get me wrong, but Quentin Ewers led that team to the college football playoffs when it was a 4-team playoff. You don't bench him. I just think that's ridiculous. That'd be like Georgia benching Carson Beck. No matter how bad he plays, he's still going to be the quarterback at Georgia. Because if not that, and they try to bring him back in, like, you kill the confidence right there. Like I said, Georgia's defensive line came away with 7 sacks. Texas, I don't know if they have it. I don't know if it's so much a pass protection problem or Georgia's just got some dogs up front problem. But Texas got fined $250K for throwing. I don't know if y'all saw it. It was a pick by Texas, and they called defensive pass interference, and it was not at all. It was really offensive pass interference. And they threw the flag, and Texas starts throwing stuff on the field like crazy, like because of one call, and it was like the third quarter. Yeah. And they bullied the refs back into a call. It was ridiculous. They ended up getting the call. I think Texas kind of got proven a little bit fraudulent. I think they struggled to get the run game established, which helps get your pass game established. Well, it'll be interesting to see how Quinn Ewers plays through the rest of the year and how that O-line holds up. But again, I think as I close out the SEC segment, the SEC is more wide open than it has been since I've been alive, and I'm glad that it's not East versus West this year, and it's just the 2 best teams. It'll be really interesting to see who comes out because, like, for example, if A&M only loses, like if they were to beat LSU this week, and then LSU wins out, and I could be wrong on this. I'm not about to do that math. It's wide open. I was about to say something that wouldn't have made much sense after I got done saying it and went to edit it and try and figure out what I was saying. There's a lot of games to be played, a lot of football to be played, and it's more wide open than it's ever been. But that's going to wrap up our Tuesday edition of From the Bench. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for all the support. Again, comment what you think about the SEC. What's your predictions of who could go to the SEC championship, so on and so forth. Make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys like this video and follow all of our social medias. The handles are listed below. Thank you guys for watching, and go Vols.